Hello, welcome to this week's Tulsa World Sports Extra Show. I'm Patrick Prince, subbing in for Juwan Lee this week. I'm joined by OU beat writers Mason Young and Eric Bailey, as well as sports editor Barry Lewis. Guys, we're going to be pretty OU centric this week with all the news coming out of Norman, so let's just get right into it. And let's start with football. Despite the tougher competition that OU will face in the SEC, do you guys see OU continuing to schedule marquee games in the non-conference schedule? Eric, let's start with you.
Well, it's crazy. I had a chance to talk to Joe Castiglione down in Destin during SEC spring meetings, and that was a question I asked him. We've seen Oklahoma regularly schedule marquee opponents during non-conference, and with Oklahoma stepping into the SEC, it just seems that the schedule is going to get tougher with, the SEC opponents coming to town, going on the road. And Joe Castiglione said, yes, they're going to continue to schedule monster opponents. 25 and 26, they got a home and home with Michigan. They have Nebraska on the schedule coming up. They have a long-term schedule with Clemson in 35 and 36. They're still going to look out to play some of those tough teams. They're just waiting to see if the SEC is going to adopt an 8-game conference schedule or a 9-game conference schedule. That's why they haven't really scheduled anyone coming up in years to come. But expect to see those big name opponents. And it's interesting because in 2025, Oklahoma is going to play Michigan, Texas, and Alabama in the same schedule. Talk about a monster schedule.
And I think the reason, Eric, that's important for them to continue to do that, at least from my perspective, is with the 12-team playoff and possibly even we haven't even had the 12-team playoff yet, and the powers that be are already talking about potentially expanding to 16. Strength of schedule is just going to continue to matter that much more. And obviously, we know they're going to get an automatic boost because of the SEC, because of the level of competition that they're playing against, week in, week out in the new conference. But I think the more that they can continue to amplify their schedule, playing teams like Michigan and Clemson, to amplify that resume before the CFP selection committee, I think is only going to continue to be more important as you're fighting more and more at-large bids for those opportunities to get in the 12-team playoff.
I think there's a difference between marquee and monster opponents. Yes, Michigan is a monster opponent, and that's an exciting series that the Sooners will have. But when you mention Nebraska, they're a big name opponent, not a monster opponent at this time. But I think those type of opponents that OU will probably try to look to schedule teams with big names, but are not necessarily great teams. It was really interesting. Barry Trammell wrote a column for us recently about how the trend is for all the power schools to get away from the tougher non-conference schedules. And I think you'll see most of those schools adopt that philosophy that they're going to be playing a lot easier non-conference schedules because their conference schedules are so tough now.
Guys, the OU softball team lost 3 players to the portal yesterday. What do you guys think the impact of that is?
Oklahoma lost Avery Hodge, Quincy Lilio, and S.J. Guerin, 2 infielders, and S.J. Guerin, of course, is a pitcher. It's going to happen, just given the state of what college athletics is like. You're going to have players looking for more playing time. I will say this, Avery Hodge was unexpected, especially the way she played in the Women's College World Series. She had an impact in all the games, and I was impressed with the way she came off the bench after the injury to Torres, Elena Torres. But I think that Oklahoma's going to be able to absorb those losses. Quincy Lilio, excuse me, just didn't bring the pop to the bat that they expected. S.J. Guerin only threw, I think, 10 innings all season. Though all 3 of those players will find homes, but the impact will be minimal. Oklahoma's going to be able to go out and find 3 players in the portal to replace those 3. And I think with the talent they got coming in through an outstanding freshman class, they'll be able to absorb those losses.
Right. I think kind of reading the tea leaves, this probably tells you how confident Patty Gasso feels in her recruiting class of 8 that she signed, that there's some incoming freshmen in there that are going to be ready to play right away and essentially take those spots that those other players would have had if they had stayed. Obviously, I agree with Eric. The Avery Hodge thing is really surprising. It felt like she was somebody that a role player that OU could potentially build around next year. But that must say something about the middle infielders that they have already on the roster and also coming in, and perhaps even who they expect to get in the portal that she's leaving. So maybe it could actually be taken as a sign of confidence that Patty Gasso and her staff know what they're doing in terms of who they sign in high school recruiting, what they're going to do with the portal, and they feel pretty good about the team they're going to be able to build for next year.
Yeah, as Eric alluded to, I think with no disrespect to those players who have entered the portal, I think OU, with the position its program is in right now, will come out ahead when they add the 3 players to replace the 3 that they're losing. It's just sad though that these days that's sort of the status of, or the state of college sports. It's so much like pro sports. You're a team just wins a championship. I mean, we're used to this in pro sports. A team wins a championship, and then a few days later, like hardly even before the celebrations and the parades are being held, you've got guys announcing that they're leaving via free agency. You hardly have time to celebrate, and then you're just moving on. And that's where college sports is these days, unfortunately, as well.
Guys, the new $1 billion entertainment district in Norman features an off-campus arena where the Sooners would play. The Sooners would get their new arena, but it's an off-campus arena. And I wonder what you guys think of that decision. It's not, there are some who do that, but most don't. Most have an on-campus arena. What do we think about that?
I think it's interesting. I'm really curious to see how this plays out. I think Oklahoma is unique. Will the students follow the team off campus? I know they have a lot of problems getting kids to come on campus to see games. I think the entertainment district will be the wild card. Will there be enough entertainment options around the arena to bring kids off campus? What's with the nightlife scene, bring kids to to tailgate. So, for lack of a better word, to games before going into the arena. I think that it's really neat that they're working together with the city, working together with the plan. They put a really good plan in place. But there's so many question marks. Is the city going to adopt this plan? I like it. I like the idea of it. I really do. But I'm just really, really curious if it's all going to come together. 6 miles away from campus. This is going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. It's just so far. I don't know. You just don't see many schools playing off campus. It's going to be unique. It's just, I don't know if it's going to work or not.
Well, one school that does have this set up is an absolute college basketball blue blood. It's Kentucky. Rupp Arena is in downtown Lexington. It's owned and operated by the county. And there's a lot of, it's within an entertainment district. There's a place right next to it called Lex Live that's like a bowling alley, a bar, and a movie theater all in one. So if OU can bring something like that to the table, and the city of Norman can with this entertainment district, that would potentially be pretty exciting. So obviously this is not completely unprecedented. It has worked at the highest level of college basketball, and they've still drawn fans. But our Barry Trammell wrote a really good column on it last week, and I kind of tend to agree with his take. I think this is potentially better for the city of Norman than it is for OU. We could see, some immediate effects for OU. Maybe creating a smaller arena right off the bat. People are excited about the new arena, and they come to the games early, and that creates, the home court advantage that Porter Moser is looking for. Maybe recruits see this new arena and they get excited about it. But we know that a lot of universities right now and a lot of athletic programs, facilities are taking to the back seat to NIL. Recruits value NIL more than they value the quality facility that they get to play in anymore. And so, to Barry's point, I think that this doesn't necessarily, even though it may be a huge economic boon for the city, it doesn't necessarily fix OU basketball's problem, because you still have to pay the bills on NIL and you still have to win games. Those are the bottom line in college basketball now.
If you win, they will come. I experienced that at the University of Tulsa, where when I went to TU, that the campus, their arena, their home court was off campus, and at the start, people were moaning they wouldn't go to the games because it was off campus. They used that excuse. But then as soon as Nolan Richardson came into town and they started winning, the place was jammed. All of a sudden, the students could find a way to get downtown. And then you see that in current days where when TU opened the Reynolds Center and TU was really good, the people came to the students came to the games, but now they won't walk across campus to go to the games anymore too often. So I think if you win, they will come. And I'm just happy OU's getting a new arena. I'm so tired of Lloyd Noble. I just think this is exciting news for OU.
So real quick, guys, before we move on to the next topic, Mason, you're an OU grad. Or do you see students going off campus to attend basketball games?
I think that they would if you put the right atmosphere around the arena, like we're talking about in such an entertainment district where there's lots of things that they don't have on or near the Lloyd Noble Center area to, entice them to go to games. I also would say, I think Porter Moser has done a really good job with different promotions and interactions and whatnot of invigorating the students the past few years. That is one thing he has done really well. And it seems like he really has kind of revived the student attendance.
Well, let's stick with basketball, guys. It was announced yesterday that it sounds like Bedlam is going to continue Bedlam basketball, which is great news for in-state basketball fans, but not at an on-campus arena. It'll be at the Paycom Center in Oklahoma City. How do we feel about that?
I'm for any Bedlam at all. Anything you can get, I'm for it. And I do like it at Paycom. I do wish it was at the BOK Center too. I wish they could go Oklahoma City once, BOK Center once, go back and forth. I know on campus would be great too, but I almost like the Bedlam setup at the Paycom at BOK. It kind of makes it different. They're going to do it at softball too. They're going to play in Oklahoma City at softball at Devon Park once a year. I like it. You can get a lot of fans in. It makes it kind of a spectacle, and I enjoy it. But anything you can get Bedlam to keep Bedlam alive in any sport, I'm for. But my vote would be to have at least one game or flip-flop it, one time in Oklahoma City, one time in Tulsa, because Oklahoma City is going to draw a lot of OU fans and OSU fans, of course. But when you get to if you get it to Tulsa, there's a lot of OSU fans here too. So I would love to see it go back and forth from Oklahoma City to Tulsa.
I would like to see that too. I think that's really interesting. I think the working theory is kind of similar to what we were just talking about with the new entertainment district with the OU arena, right? Like you might actually you're not necessarily going to fill Paycom Center for a college basketball game, but pulling OU and OSU fans together into downtown Oklahoma City where there's other things to do in and around the game, you might attract better attendance for that than you would if you played like a home and home or played a game on a campus. So for that reason, I think that this is a good setup and looking forward to seeing how it all shakes out.
Yes, I think Paycom is a great idea because you have the potential to draw a bigger crowd than you would on either of the on-campus facilities. And also I like Eric's idea about holding at the BOK Center because it was demonstrated when OU was playing Arkansas that you could draw huge crowds to the BOK Center. So I think OSU, you would have a chance to even draw more people than you had for OU Arkansas. So I think it would be worth it for the schools involved to give the BOK Center a try.
Yeah, I'm with Eric. I'm in favor of Bedlam wherever you want to play it. That's really great that they're going to continue to do that. All right, let's move on to the rapid fire segment where each of you will quickly kind of give your thoughts on a topic. Barry, let's start with you. Let's talk a little golf. Scotty Scheffler is on a historic Tiger-like, if you will, run. He's got 5 wins so far this year and 1 major so far this year. Does he win the U.S. Open this week and add another major, which would be 3 for him?
I'm going to grudgingly say yes, because normally when you ask me these questions, going all the way back to Tiger Woods when he was on his runs, that I would just take the field. But Scotty Scheffler is just the streak that he's put together is just so impressive. However, there are some golfers really playing well. You can't overlook Wyndham Clark. After all, he is the defending champion and no one's talking about him, and he is playing really well this year. Xander Schauffele and Colin Morikawa are a couple of others I I think, who are playing really well, and those are players to watch. But I guess I'm going to have to say yes on Scotty Scheffler.
While we were recording this show, guys, some approximate kickoff times were announced for OU and their SEC games. Mason, won't you just kind of give us a quick rundown of that and your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the big thing we learned today that OU fans will be pleased about is of all the OU kickoff times this season, only the South Carolina game in Norman will be an 11 a.m. kick. Everything else has already been confirmed as afternoon, evening, or it'll be a flex, which means it could be either of those, but not 11 a.m. Obviously, OU fans have gotten really tired of all the 11 a.m. kicks that the Big 12 handed out these past few years. So it's going to be a welcome reality for a lot of fans to have that much more time to tailgate before going into the games.
News came out a couple days ago that Sterling Shepard is going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, reuniting with Baker Mayfield. Eric, what do you think about that?
I love it. I really love it a lot because these are two players I enjoyed covering when they were at Oklahoma, and who will never forget the throw that Baker Mayfield made to Sterling at Tennessee that and during that comeback win, and that was Baker Mayfield's really his ideal breakout game, the third game of his career in Knoxville. And Shepard also had the great catch on the sideline in overtime too. So it's great seeing those two partner back up, rewind it, and for Oklahoma fans, it'll take them back to memories of 2015 when those two made some special plays. So I'm really excited to watch and see what they can do at the next level together.
All right, let's move on to parting shots.
All right. Wasso's Jalen Montanati, who is dual citizenship, had a decision to make this summer, whether to play or try out for the Team USA under 17 basketball team or for Team Italy. And he has chosen Team USA. So he's going to Colorado Springs to try out for that team. There's 12 spots for the 36 players trying out. Ashton Slaughter had a chance to talk with Jalen yesterday, and he's going to have a story in Wednesday's paper. So read all about Jalen's decision and why he chose to play for Team USA. So good for Jalen.
Mason?
Yeah, OU looking ahead to this coming season, you want the fields on Owen, you want Owen Field to look pristine for all these SEC games, all these people coming in. They're going to have their work cut out in replacing Jason Ferris, their director of athletic fields, who decided a couple weeks ago to leave to become the golf course superintendent at Dornick Hills Country Club in Ardmore. So good for him. He's back on the golf course scene, was previously a golf course guy before he got into doing the fields for OU for the last 5 years, and had developed a huge Twitter following of fans who were really impressed with the ways he took care of the grass and painted the fields. Some of his best work were those spring games where he got to do the designs a little bit more different, adding stuff like the outline of the state of Oklahoma in the middle of the field, and just kind of changing some things up from how they traditionally are during home games. So OU is going to do a national search to find its next director of athletic fields, and it'll be tough to find somebody who was as good at it as Jason.
You know, guys, Caitlin Clark is a generational type player. We've got to see her play in college, and now we're getting to see her first year in the WNBA. And I know news came out that she did not make the Olympic team. I really think she would have brought something to that team. And I know there's been a lot of talk about her not making the team, and it's been a heavy topic of discussion. I really think she could have brought something to the team. That is the hardest team to make. I understand that, but I think she would have brought a lot of eyeballs to the sport. I know that, as every time she takes the court, you see the popularity and the recognition she brings to the sport. What's going to happen in the future, I don't know, but I just think that she could have brought a lot of notice to the sport, a lot of eyes. And I think on top of that, she's not a bad player. We see what she does every time she takes the court. I know she's young. I just go back to the dream team when Christian Laettner was a part of that dream team, that first dream team, and coming out of Duke, and he didn't get a lot of playing time, but he brought something to that team. I think Caitlin Clark, as she gets older and as she matures, she's going to have an opportunity to play on some Olympic teams. I really think she could have she could have been of value to this team. And it is a little bit of a disappointment she didn't make this year's team, but her time will come. I think her time will come, and we'll watch her flourish as a professional player as the years go by.
Hey, Barry, before we get out of here, can you just briefly tell us about All World? We are about a week and a half away from this year's show. Can you just real briefly kind of run through that and kind of let people know what's going on?
Oh, even closer than that. All World Awards Banquet, our 8th annual All World Awards, is scheduled Thursday, June 20th at the Cox Business Convention Center, Legacy Hall. Tickets are available at allworldawards.com as we celebrate the best in high school athletics from the past year. Winners will be announced in 21 different sporting categories, plus specialty awards. And it's just a very exciting time. And from starting today, from when we taped on June 11th through June 19th, we have on a daily basis, a page each day for like today, we start with All World Boys Golf, and tomorrow will be All World Girls Golf. So we've got a different sport covered each day from June 11th through the 19th, with the finalists announced, as well as first team selections and honorable mentions. So June 20th, All World Awards. Be there at the Cox Business Convention Center.
All right, that'll do it for this week. We appreciate you watching and or listening. Great stuff from our panel. Thanks, guys. The Tulsa World Show will be back next week.